Welcome. This is Russ Moody with another battle report featuring. It's part of the Once and Future King Orcs and Goblins, and this one actually is the revenge game. Pretty much after the Bretonnia suffered a defeat, I figured I'd give a rematch, and so here's my me versus my wife. This is a lot softer. It ended up being Dawn Attack, which, as if people know, it's a terrible mission for the Skaven. They don't tend to do too well. It's not necessarily the best for Bretonnia, but really it tends to hammer the Skaven. A little bit about my list. I softened it up a little bit, so there's no Plague Monks, no Sensor Bearers, and no Doom Rocket. So, but there's a bunch of Warp Fire Throwers and War Machines, that kind of thing, running around. So we'll see how it is. Like I said, it's 3,000 points. It's Dawn Attack, and she set up first, and uh, then there's a bit of a question as far as who should go first. If the Bretonians can still take the first turn if they want to pray, given the scenario rules. And so Skaven ended up going first just because we figured that in order to get the blessing that she would still have to go second. And so, but we'll go right on into the Bretonian deployment first. Sorry, here a brief overview of the battlefield. We'll see. We've got a forest, which is I believe it's the one that where if you stay in there, then you take damage. So my guys will be vacating that forest in a hurry. There's a tower of blood there. It didn't factor in much in the game. A river and a hill, and then over in the far end of the table on my side, that is actually a dwarf brew house. And so if you're near that, you're going to be stubborn, and that factored in. And that's pretty much the board. You can see the setup, and then we'll go individually through the setup. So here, this is her left flank, my right, and we got a group of 44 or so bowmen on that hill. And then next to that is the Peg Knights and a Bretonnian Lord, that's the general. He's on a Hippogriff, and he's got the heroic killing blow with a reroll build, is what that is. And then the next picture, we see we've got 8 Knights of the Realm, and then 3 characters. They're all paladins. One's a BSB. Next to that, there's 45 men-at-arms with a damsel in there, and she's got the thing so that they can have a 5-up ward, or the blessing save. And then in the background, you saw there's the they ended up she rolled and got a bunch of units on her right flank, and then the rest in the center. Nothing on the left. And then right there we see, or except for actually I think maybe the bowman might have been on the left, but there's 15 knights errant right there, and then that the unit next to them, that's actually mounted yeomen, 6 of them in this list. Going around my side, this is my left flank, and you'll see I've got some gutter runners that are in the house. They eventually end up there anyway, so that's why they're there. I didn't care much about the scout room because that's where I wanted to place them. And then right there is the Doom Wheel. Next to that is a unit of 45 some odd slaves with shields. And then we'll move on over. And there's another big, huge unit of slaves with spears. And then next to that, those are my. There's a unit of about 20 storm vermin, and that's got a chieftain in there, and the Skaven general, which is the Gracer this time, and the BSB. Next to that is their warp fire thrower, and they're all on the hill. The following picture is we see this is the rest of the army, more or less. There's the rat ogres, and there's a warlord on there, and he's carrying the fellblade on the giant back of the rat ogres, and then there's a small unit of 10 storm vermin, and then a warp fire thrower. And behind that, I don't know if you can see, there's also another group of 10 storm vermin with another warp fire thrower. And then in the woods are the poison wind globadiers with a mortar, and since I rolled on the right flank, there's the doom wheel, and then those are night runners. They're actually going to be deploying via a tunnel. Vanguard. So Vanguard move right here. She vanguards these mounted yeomen in front of the fence, and you'll see one of them failed the danger strain test and died. And the Pegasus Knights fly over here where I put my other unit of gutter runners scouting to try and get into the flank and do a little bit of disruption. But she moved them over there to counter, and then that's also the spot where my night runners are going to try and come up at. All right, next, Skaven turn 1. So this is Skaven turn 1, and the Doom Wheel rolls forward kind of poorly. The Poison Wind Globadiers, everything moves out of that forest because I think you take like D6 Strength 4s or something if you stick around in there. And then you can see the next picture, things advance. The Rat Ogres advance probably the fastest. The Fellblade means that there's limited amounts of time, and as the Fellblade slowly kills off that Warlord, so he's got to get into combat fast. Everything else kind of moves forward in the center, you see. And then Doom Wheel moves forward. The rats are there, and I think most of my Doom Wheel, I think my Doom Wheel's restrained on all of their lightning rolls. It was kind of awesome. So anytime was about to roast my own troops, I actually got my restrain roll, so I didn't have to end up shooting all my own troops. And I shot at the Peg Knights. That's why they just stood there and did nothing to them. And over here, though, different story. Shooting from the gutter runners in that house. And I think maybe something else. I did something else to them. Maybe it was Warp Lightning or something. But anyway, I killed 4 of them. And there's that last guy. And he rolls a 4, so he's going to stick around. All right, so going on right here, we've got Bretonnia turn 1. And the Peg Knights charge. And my gutter runners had no choice but to stand there and shoot. They probably would have fled right off the board if I had flown. So they stood there and did stand and shoot. And again, nothing. Their shots just bounced off them. I mean, they got poison and slings. You figure something would get through, but I think she made all the armor saves. So, and over here, the Knights Errant. All right, they charge over the fence. Or actually, it's a wall. And if you can see in the background, 3 of them die, and then they charge into the Doom Wheel. And then they've got the Errantry Banner, and so they're Strength 6 going into this Doom Wheel. And I'm thinking it's going to get annihilated. Right here, everything just kind of dances around. I think she actually moved backwards a little bit just to kind of stay out of range of those Rat Ogres and make it so I can't charge them. And except for the men-at-arms move forward to touch that wall so that they can have a defended obstacle if I manage to charge in there. And right here, the bowmen shoot those Rat Ogres. They don't touch the Rat Ogres, but they manage to kill off 2 of the handlers, which means again just motivating me more to advance faster because I really don't want to be dealing with stupidity. And then right here, my gutter runners managed to wound one of the Peg Knights, but then they wiped them out pretty much. Maybe they fled, but either way, they fled off the board, and she reformed to look like that. And right here, my Doom Wheel actually, due to the brew house, it's actually stubborn on its leadership, and then they only did 2 wounds rather than, I mean, they probably should have done at least 3 or 4, but they just did 2 wounds, so it holds, and then she reforms to look like this. And what I thought was clever about this is she reformed to be long enough so that those slaves can't get past them. All right, so Skaven turn 2. My Night Runners show up, and they just pop up like that. I mean, I think they'd scattered maybe 2 inches, so they pretty much, the tunnel showed up exactly where I wanted it. And I thought that was good and a nice surprise. And then they can actually charge the turn they show up, so they charge right on it. That's actually not a rattling gun. That is that's a warp grinder, is what I'm using that as. And they're charged right into the flank of those bowmen. And I'm thinking, yes, I'm gonna just sweep this entire flank with this unit, and things will be good. And then right here, I just charge in the slaves to join that men-at-arms, the knights fighting there. And over here, that's just kind of an overview of what everything looks like. The gutter runners just stay in the house because they're just gonna shoot that get the remaining points for the mounted yeoman. And then everything else just advances forward, moves up. My warp fire thrower is trying to get him into positions to shoot. And then so that's what that is. The Rat Ogres advance the fastest because again, and then I've actually passed all my Fellblade rolls so far, so he hasn't taken a wound from the Fellblade yet. And over here, the Doom Wheel moves just terribly slow, and that's going to be what the fate of this Doom Wheel over here is. I keep rolling, like, I think this one was a 7, and then the next turn it actually rolls a 4. It doesn't even make it to the river. It was just pitiful rolling over here. This Doom Wheel was moving slow. And then the Poison Wing Globadiers occupy that Tower of Blood. And right here, I believe this is Warp Lightning that killed off 2 of those. And you see the 5 and the 6, I believe, are probably the failed, or no, those are just magic spells, so just ignore those. And then right here, we've got the result of this combat. The Doomwheel and the slaves actually managed to kill 2 of those knights. And then I don't think she does much back, and so they end up just sticking around. And then pure disappointment over here. I managed to kill, I don't know, a lot of guys over there. But what happens is there's still actually 3 ranks of them, and they kill 1 Night Runner, meaning I've only got 2 ranks of Night Runners. So they're steadfast. And since they're right next to the General and the BSB, they just stay there. So they're stuck in combat. And they're eventually going to reform. But I think the first time they actually fail their reform. Sorry, this is Bretonnia turn 2. And everything charges in. And what you got here is you see the knights come into the front of those rat ogres. And then she kept her lord out of the fight, which I thought was a good idea, because I'm carrying the Fellblade. And the thing I missed is those Peg Knights, you saw where they were originally, and it wasn't actually that far of a charge, but they actually could see the rat ogres too, and so they came in on the flank, and I kind of missed that. If I had realized that, I kind of missed that those Peg Knights were going to be in a position to charge, so they charged the flank and got into the rat ogres. And that was I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting just to have the 1 combat to the front maybe and be able to do well, but those rat ogres are kind of in a hopeless situation now. Right here, the men-at-arms move forward, and she actually charged the men-at-arms into the slaves with spears, I think she was thinking that they could actually win that fight. And slaves versus men-at-arms, the thing is that my slaves are cheaper than those men-at-arms. Men-at-arms are probably way overcosted comparatively, because my slaves are 2.5 points, and men-at-arms are like 5. So men-at-arms, hopefully, if there's ever a new Bretonnia book, men-at-arms will see a reduction. And then right here, she actually just moves her heroic killing blow lord and just plops him right there in the middle of everything. Not entirely sure, but I think the idea was to have this have her lord so that she could get to the bunker. I think was what she was going for on that. And then these guys actually either backed. I think they backed up, or just got into position where they could get a charge, and I couldn't charge. And then over here, this is some of the results of the combat. I kill the BSB. I think my rat ogres did that. That's where my rat ogres directed their attack, killed the BSB. And then my warlord with the Fellblade got issued a challenge, which was picked up by the champion, and the champion was slaughtered and took 4 wounds. I rolled a 1 and a 3 with my D6 wounds there. And so, and then I think they pretty much, yeah, and as you can see, they've killed 3 rat ogres and the handler, and then put 2 more. So it was something like 10, 11 wounds inflicted in this battle. Just nasty. So my only hope is to escape. And that down, and that's what it looked like after that. Because in the pursuit, they caught me, but then they can only pursue. You can only pursue up to a friendly unit, and so that's where she ended up after the pursuit, which I think wasn't quite what she had in mind with that character. I think if she had to do it all again, she would have just left her lord in the background and waited to see how it all ended up. But anyway, and over here, I actually direct as many attacks as I can into that damsel, and I kill the damsel. So I've taken away the blessing, and then you can see those men-at-arms rolled poorly, I think, and only got about 2 kills off it. So they actually won combat, but not by much, due to having like a rank and a standard on having a standard on her part. And so I think I won by 1 or something like that, as it turned out. And so then anyway, of course, they're testing off a rerollable like 8 or something like that, so they held. And over here, the attrition continues. I kill, I think, pretty much no knights. And then, she actually wins the Doom Will and takes down 3 more slaves.